This bride was caught during the act during her bachelorette. Ah, love, isn't it just the best? When you meet a person whom you not only physically like, but whom you click with emotionally and mentally, you can't help but feel like you're on cloud nine. And when that person feels the same way, it's like winning the lottery. So you date, get to know each other, become intimate, meet their family and friends, move in together, and perhaps even get a pet together. And if all goes well, the next thing you know, it's been 2 years and you're starting to hear wedding bells. While a wedding is usually what comes after a few years of being in a serious relationship, it cannot be taken lightly. It is only for those couples who are sincerely in love, committed, and of course, faithful. So before you go planning your dream wedding, you'd better be sure about what you're getting into first. Marriage requires commitment. Marriage is intended to be a lifelong commitment to your partner, and just because divorce is within the realm of possibility doesn't mean you should go off and marry whoever you want on the spur of the moment. A wedding should not be seen as a mere excuse to party with friends and family. It is an intimate and sacred ceremony that symbolizes your everlasting love and devotion to your partner. In many ways, the moment your marriage celebrant of choice announces you as husband and wife, there is no going back. That's why it's so important to think long and hard before going through with it. Planning a wedding is challenging, but making a marriage work is even more difficult. If you are absolutely sure that you are marrying the person you love and that you are ready to give it your all to make the marriage a happy one, then by all means go for it. Unlike some, a lucky few are able to immediately find and fall in love with the right person. From the outside at least, it seems that making the relationship work is a piece of cake for them. Such is not the case for these two people you are about to meet. Say hello to Pablo Torres Gandara and Emily Alicia Paz, a couple from Mexico who had more than their share of unfortunate incidents before they finally got married. Living as they do in an era of fickle fads and social media obsessions, this gorgeous couple almost did not push through with their marriage because of scandal. A controversial video of Emma appeared on the internet, and a painfully public trial via social media ensued. It was love at first sight for Pablo and Emma. They dated for 2 years, after which Pablo decided he wanted to spend the rest of his life with this woman. He waited not a moment longer and proposed to Emma, who said yes without hesitation. Not long after, the two announced their wedding to their family and friends. They were to be married on April 7, 2017. The newly engaged couple had less than a year to plan their dream wedding, but they were determined to get married without any further delay. You see, the two were extremely in love and wanted nothing more than to make things official. Do you see the way they look at each other in that picture? If that's not true love, then I don't know what is. Emma had dreamed of having a big wedding ever since she was a little girl. This imagined wedding featured a stunning gown that every girl could be envious of and a decent 3-tiered cake with tiny versions of themselves on top. But what she wanted above all else was Pablo, and at the end of the day, while having her dream wedding was important, all she truly cared about was being with the love of her life. And who can blame her? Pablo was an amazing boyfriend. Emma has never been happier in her entire life, and she couldn't imagine living without him. But before they could officially tie the knot, a common tradition needed to take place, one final party to bid their singlehood goodbye. As part of a long-standing tradition, Pablo and Emma agreed to have a bachelor and bachelorette party to celebrate their final days of being single. As you may know, such events are defined by wild nights of partying. It was, after all, one last hurrah to celebrate freedom before the big day. While not all couples hold a bachelor and bachelorette party, Pablo and Emma agreed that it was a good idea to do so. They were intent on spending the rest of their lives together, so they thought a fun party with their friends would be completely harmless. Pablo went off to plan his bachelor party, while Emma's friends made the preparations for her. They planned to take her to Playa del Carmen, a popular party resort in Mexico, for an entire weekend. It was going to be their surprise for dear Emma, and they were intent on making it the best party ever. Emma's girlfriends booked their posse some apartments near the Coralina Daylight Club. That way, they could choose to either lie on the beach and get a tan or party with other vacationers whenever they wanted to. It was the best of both worlds. Even though Emma had no idea what her friends had planned for her that weekend, she was beyond pumped for it. True, she was going to miss Pablo, but her friends meant a lot to her, and a few days at the beach was the perfect way to spend her last few days as a single woman. Besides, Pablo was going to have a pretty spectacular time with his buddies, too. So it only made sense that she took some time off from planning the wedding to have a bit of fun with her dearest friends. It was going to be an epic weekend for both Emma and Pablo. Finally, the time came for Emma's bachelorette party. As they checked into their apartments, the girls didn't waste any time and started popping bottles of champagne. After lounging for a while, they decided to check out the Coralina Daylight Club. A pool party was taking place there, and the girls were excited to join the fun. One of Emma's girlfriends had pre-booked a private VIP area at the club. Their passes gave them access to their very own lounge, as well as waiter services for the entire day. Emma was so ecstatic. This was exactly how she hoped her bachelorette party would be. Her friends nailed it, and she couldn't ask for more. So the girls spent the entire afternoon popping more and more bottles and toasting to the upcoming wedding of their close friend. They had not spent time with each other as a group in so long, so this weekend was the perfect time to let their hair down. It was all clean fun, so what was the harm in letting loose a little? The afternoon turned into night, and the party was just getting started. The girls were minding their own business and enjoying each other's company, and they were having the best time in so long. But what they thought was a night of clean fun was going to turn into a huge disaster. The vibe at the party was amazing. It was packed with so many people. The drinks were flowing freely and the music was on point. Everyone was truly having a wonderful time, and Emma and the girls, well, they were soon becoming the talk of the town. With their party banners, sashes, and balloons, it was evident that they were celebrating someone's bachelorette party. On top of that, all the girls were glammed up and looking their best, so it was no wonder people were starting to notice them. A particular group of boys caught the girls' interest, prompting them to visit them over to their VIP area. Let's set the scene here. We now have a group of boys and girls who have been drinking the entire day, starting to get to know each other, and since they were at a party, it was natural for them to start bringing party games into the mix. Regrettably, it was during this part of the celebration that things got out of hand. By this time, Emma had downed way too many drinks and had started to lose her senses. She was celebrating her bachelorette party in Mexico, and she was pretty convinced there was nothing wrong with having a bit of fun with one of the boys. After all, she was still single. Oh, Emma, Emma, Emma. The bride-to-be was so drunk that all through the party, she kept flirting with one of the boys. Eventually, the two started kissing. It was not just a simple smack on the lips either. It was a full-on, passionate kiss between two strangers, and apparently the two locked lips a fair few times throughout the night. In Emma's drunken state, she was thinking, this is harmless, right? I'm still single anyway. She was just having fun, and while the kiss was pretty intense, to her it was harmless. Plus, she was in a faraway place. There was no way anyone would find out about it. Or so she thought. While that night, Emma was pretty convinced that she wasn't doing anything wrong, that was not what she felt the following morning. On the contrary, she was stricken with shame and regret. When the effects of the alcohol wore off, all that remained was a feeling of panic and humiliation. It was all her fault. She could not blame her friends for letting her kiss a stranger on her bachelorette party because they were all wasted as well. And even though she knew that the kiss, let's be fair, kisses, meant nothing, she still felt awful for having done something so hurtful to her one and only Pablo. Emma spent the rest of the weekend beating herself up for what she had done. She was humiliated, regretful, and extremely worried about how Pablo would take the news. It would surely break his heart if he found out, but she couldn't lie to him about it either, or could she? Should she hide this big secret from her future husband, or should she tell him the truth and risk losing him forever? Emma was celebrating her last days as a single woman. She was just having fun. She got way too drunk. She immediately regretted what she did the next day. It meant nothing. Surely Pablo would understand, right? But what if he didn't? No one apart from her friends knew about what had happened, and they had her back. Surely there was no chance of Pablo finding out, so maybe she should just keep it to herself? Emma went back home still feeling sick to her stomach and confused as to whether she should confess to her fiancé or not. However, she didn't get the chance to make the decision for herself because her misconduct had been caught on camera. To make matters worse, the video clip of her shenanigans had been uploaded online. When Emma saw the text message from her friend telling her what had happened, the world came crashing down around her. There was no way she was getting out of this now. Not only was her wedding at risk of getting canceled, but she was also about to hurt the one person she loved the most. At least one thing was certain: she had to tell Pablo. And she had to do it immediately, or else he might find out on his own. The clip of Emma and her kissing buddy went viral in an instant. The anonymous uploader used the hashtag Lady Carolina after the name of the resort. In a matter of minutes, the video garnered thousands and thousands of views. It spread like a plague through shares. At this point, there was nothing Emma could do to stop it. Emma could not believe what was happening. She was weeks away from getting married, but now everything was ruined just because of how irresponsible she was that night. There was no excuse for what she did, and it was time to face the consequences. With the video clip spreading by the second, Pablo was bound to either see it or be informed by a friend or a relative. It was just a matter of time, so Emma had to act fast. She did not have much time left. If she wanted to cushion the blow, she had to talk to Pablo right away. While it wouldn't be easy, she had to tell him herself. She wasn't going to let him find out from the internet. He deserved better than that, but going through with it was easier said than done. Emma spent hours crying in fear that Pablo would leave her, but she had no other choice. She finally confessed everything she did that night to Pablo, and as you can imagine, he was heartbroken. It was a mix of emotions for Pablo. He was devastated, humiliated, and deeply hurt. He watched the clip and was left speechless. He could not believe the love of his life could do something so reckless. That was not the Emma he knew and loved. He felt like he didn't know her anymore. And how could he marry a stranger? Emma had no idea what to do. The truth is, there was nothing she could say or do at that point to make it better. The wedding was just a few weeks away, and while all she wanted was to push through with it, she was also preparing herself for the absolute worst. If the heartbreak wasn't bad enough, social media was buzzing with thousands of angry comments condemning Emma and her actions. They mostly could not comprehend how a bride-to-be could hurt the person she claimed to be in love with. The photos and video clip continued to circulate online, and people continued to express their hatred towards Emma. After having gone viral, Emma stayed away from social media to protect herself from the scrutiny of the online world. Even though she knew that there was no one to blame but herself, the nasty and hurtful comments proved too much for her. Anyone who's ever been subjected to trial by social media can attest to the fact that it is a nightmarish ordeal. The effects of the scandalous video going viral were widespread and devastating. Emma's family saw just how much it was damaging her. As such, they released a public statement asking media platforms to take down the footage for the sake of their poor Emma's wellness. It was an incredibly brave move on their part, as they knew they might suffer social media backlash too. But something had to be done. People were getting way too brutal and personal with Emma, and their comments were too much to take. Emma's family knew it had to stop, or she might never be able to recover. The following weeks were filled with misery for both Emma and Pablo. Pablo was still heartbroken after what Emma had done, and Emma was just completely humiliated and defeated. It had gotten so bad that she even decided to call off the wedding herself. She couldn't take the public scrutiny anymore, so she had to put an end to all of it. There was no way Emma could walk down the aisle and say "I do," not with all those judgmental eyes staring at her. She was made well aware of what everyone thought of her. She knew no one believed she deserved to have a happy ending with Pablo. And even though she loved him dearly, she was afraid of being mocked and judged in person. Pablo, on the other hand, was still undecided about the wedding. But since Emma asked to call it off, he had no choice but to agree. After all, Emma hurt him so much, perhaps it was for the best. The only problem was, despite all the hardships the incident brought to their lives, one thing remained: they still loved each other deeply. So while Emma was still traumatized by the hatred she received from social media, and while Pablo was still deeply hurt, they did not want to give up on each other. In order for them to heal from it all, one thing needed to happen. Pablo had to find it in his heart to forgive Emma. Emma apologized profusely for what she did, and Pablo saw just how genuinely remorseful she was. Eventually, he decided to let go of the past and forgive Emma. The love he had for her was far more powerful than a drunken mistake. At the end of the day, he still wanted to spend the rest of his life with Emma, and no one was going to stop him. A few months after the incident, Pablo and Emma's wedding was officially back on. The date they'd initially planned for had already been and gone amidst the social media storm. As such, they had to start the wedding planning all over again. It was for the best though, as it was the perfect way to start over as a couple. Despite everything, Pablo and Emma still wanted to have a life together. The two decided to put the past behind them and focus on their present and future. Infidelity is extremely difficult to forgive, and we salute Pablo for looking past Emma's mistake and moving on. And we also have to give props to Emma, who despite all the backlash, still managed to get back up and fight for her love. See, this is why we think the love these two have for each other is genuine. It is so much easier to just break up and move on, but they decided to work on the relationship, no matter how hard it was. Rebuilding broken trust takes a lot of time and patience, and we admire these two for having the will to try. Now that a significant amount of time has passed, people are wondering whatever happened to Pablo and Emma. Are they still together? Did they really get married, or did they call it off once again? No one really knew for sure because the two stayed extremely low-key after the announcement of their second engagement. People made all sorts of speculations, with some convinced that the two could never make it work. However, many kind-hearted people hoped that they did get married and just decided to stay away from social media to avoid any more attention. After all, having a quiet life away from controversy does sound appealing. Even after the controversy died down, Pablo and Emma found they could no longer maintain their privacy. Sadly, Emma will forever be known as Lady Carolina, until an even juicier scandal comes along, that is. But for now, people still want to know what happened to Lady Carolina. This photo was snapped in 2018 by an anonymous person who recognized Emma. Of course, the photo was posted online and became an instant hit. Boy, are we happy to see that Emma and Pablo are still together. However, something seems to be missing from Emma's finger. Could this be a bad sign? If you look closely at the encircled area of the picture, you'll notice that Emma is not wearing her engagement or wedding rings. Could this mean that the two never got married? Or did Emma just choose not to wear them to the game? Whether or not the two decided to tie the knot, we are genuinely happy to see that they are still together. Regardless of whether they're married, just a couple, or even just friends, it's nice to see that the two have managed to keep their relationship alive. If you are in a relationship and want to stay in it, then you might want to avoid the Carolina Daylight Club. Why, you ask? Apparently, in a completely unrelated incident, a young married woman was recorded in the middle of an intense makeout session with a random dude. There's no question that it might be her husband because he is quite famous. In fact, he is none other than professional baseball player Luis Porches. Since the video went viral, the girl named Hillary Castillo has been named Lady Hillary. According to reports, her relationship with Porches was thrown into chaos following the incident, much like what happened with Emma and Pablo. To be fair, we weren't there to witness these incidents, so we can't really say what truly transpired. But we have to give these women the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps they really were way too drunk, and perhaps they weren't thinking clearly. Should we really let their actions define who they are? Can we actually say, based on the evidence we saw, that they are horrible people? Think about it. Every one of us has done something we are not proud of. The only difference is our wrongdoings, unless you were as unlucky as Emma, were not caught on camera. Sadly for Emma and Hillary, their drunken mistakes were not only recorded, but shared online for everyone to see. And once something is uploaded on the internet, it stays there forever. Another thing to consider is this. While Emma did make a horrible mistake, does that mean she deserved to be publicly humiliated? Was it fair for her actions to be recorded and then uploaded? Yes, it was awful, but were the events that transpired anybody's business but hers and Pablo's? Emma never asked for all the attention. In fact, she had no choice in the matter. In the age of smartphones, we all need to be cautious about how we act in public. But this reminder is more important now than ever because once you go viral, regardless of the reason, your life becomes public, and you will never really be able to take your anonymity back. Let's take a step back and understand just how much time and technology have progressed over the decades. Had this incident happened 30 years ago, there would have been no way for Pablo to find out what went on in the club, not unless a friend or relative witnessed the scene and talked. Nowadays, by contrast, people need to be extra careful with what they say and do because everything can be recorded and shared to billions with just the touch of a button. And while this does come with some benefits, you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of a social media backlash. This photo demonstrates just how powerful social media can be. The scandal surrounding Emma and Pablo and Emma's kissing buddy became so popular that this couple even decided to dress up as them for Halloween. All that's missing is a sad Pablo sulking in a corner, and while some might think this is insulting, in a way, it's the sincerest form of flattery. The infamous Lady Carolina clip completely changed the lives of Pablo and Emma, but we truly wish the couple all the best. It's true that Emma did a horrible thing, but everybody deserves a second chance. Her drunken mistake does not define who she is, and fortunately, Pablo understood that.